rolling along here, a little afternoon time. We're bringing back, I basically told Porter Larson, we are bringing back a feature that we did for a couple of years. Kind of got away from it in the last year and a half, but we're bringing it back every Wednesday at noon. We're bringing back Where Are They Now Wednesday. That's where we find an athlete, a former athlete from the state of Utah, whether they grew up here or they played here or whatever it was, and just kind of catch up and find out what they're up to now. And it was a blast. It's Utes, it's Cougars, it's Jazz, it's Real Salt Lake, it's Weber State, it's Utah State, it's people that grew up here and maybe went someplace else. It's Where Are They Now Wednesday. And it's generally people you haven't heard from in a while. And maybe they've been out of the spotlight, stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun. We'll try and bring that back maybe starting as soon as tomorrow. Now in studio, it's not quite a Where Are They Now Wednesday because this guy's got a little social media presence. And he wasn't coaching football too far away for the last couple of years. Yeah, Pocatello feels like it's a million miles away, but it's only about 2 hours away. But he's one of our all-time favorites, a former University of Utah great. And he's kind of started a new venture in his life. We're going to talk about a little bit and some football stuff, too. Former Utah defensive lineman Steve Fafita. How are you?
I'm good. I'm not sure how to do this radio thing.
So. No, you're good. You know what you do? You sit right there, right in front of that mic. And you and I just chat just a little bit. It's not like it's the first time you've ever been interviewed, going back in the day. So what's new with you? What's up? I mentioned you were coaching at Idaho State for a while, and then you reached out to me kind of late last year and said, I'm kind of starting up a new project. I'm kind of opening up a new chapter in my life. Got away from coaching a little bit, and now give our listeners an idea of what you're up to.
Yeah. I actually walked away from coaching because of my alcoholism.
Really?
So I ran into some issues and stepped away from coaching to kind of take care of myself. And in that, I found this project that I'm pretty fired up about. And pretty much what happened is I went to therapy, which I'm still a little embarrassed to say, but I went to therapy for alcoholism. In that, I found that a lot of my alcohol abuse was due to things I learned as a child.
Yeah.
I started drinking when I was 14, 15 years old. And then a lot of the football part of my life was just because I was so insecure about so many things, and that's what I was good at. That's what I try to use to cover up these insecurities. So that's where I discovered this project, and now we're going.
So what's it called, first of all, and where did kind of the idea for that? I mean, you've kind of given me the background, but there had to have been a moment where there was an idea in your head or you saw somebody doing something that gave you this idea. What's the project called?
So the project's called Impressions.
Okay.
It's spelled, though, as like I'm a press on.
Uh-huh.
And pretty much it was just I was in a dark place, and I figured out what was wrong with my situation. And, again, it all goes back to football. And learning some bad habits there.
So football was good and bad for you.
No
it
doubt.
was good for you because it elevated you. It gave you a chance to get a degree. It gave you a chance to do some things with your life, but it also covered some other things up.
Yeah, it covered up a lot of, like now that I'm getting into this project and even being here on the radio show, I'm more of an artistic guy.
Uh-huh.
But I've covered up a lot of those feelings because that's not really what you do as a big, tough Polynesian guy. You're more of a football player,
right?
And I still fight a lot of those. Like even sitting here right now, like I have this anxiety to me or this anxiousness to me that it's tough to sit here and tell like what I'm really feeling. But yeah, I had a lot of this artistic side to me that has never been explored and never really been let out. And I kind of discovered that, and then I just felt a lot of the habits that I built were like toughness and, like when you get faced with something, the only way I know how to deal with it is like aggression and take it head on. So that was a lot of my interactions. Like another one of the things that is hard for me to say and talk about, though, is like I was raised in a family where it was all right to fist fight with my brother. Like the last time I fought my brother, he broke my nose.
Like real fist fight?
Yeah, like real fist fight. And then the next day it'd be like he'd come up and be like, "Hey, you good?" And I'd say, "Yeah, I'm good. Let's go eat." And nothing would get resolved. And that's the kind of way I interacted with people, and that's the kind of way I built relationships. Was like if you get into a fight with somebody, it's never personal. You just move on, and that helped me in football, but that doesn't really help you in dealing with people.
So you're trying to help yourself, first of all, deal with these issues, but now you want to help other people too.
I think this is just kind of me just tracking my story a little bit. And
if your story helps somebody else kind of realize some things, more power to them, right?
I do, yeah. I think that I was just telling Porter that I think this is a little bit of therapy for me, is just be like, well, these are some of the questions I battled in my life. There's no real answer to any of these questions, so what do you guys think about them? And I just asked people I think are good people to talk to about these questions. And
you've got a website and you've got a social media handle too. Tell people what it is if they're interested in going there.
Yeah, we're on Twitter and Instagram, and it's just at IMPRESSON1. So that's on Twitter, and then it's the same thing on Instagram. So it's really just, I call it impression, and I really just talk about like little impressions in my life that left a lasting impression, and made me who I am. But it's spelled as I'm a press on through, really pretty much just pushing on.
At IMPressON1. IMPressON1 on Twitter, and same thing on IG as well if you're interested in seeing what Steve's up to. And I've seen some of these videos. You've kind of made some treks around the country. I saw some stuff where you talk to people, Utah folks, BYU folks, USC folks. You went to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, shot some stuff there. Are you talking to your kids too? Are you talking to high schoolers and people like that? Because I think if you can get to them early enough, then maybe some of these kids know, what your story is, and they kind of see by example. I don't have to be the big tough dude all the time. I can let my feelings out a little bit.
No doubt. And I can see why you're good at radio. But that's my goal, is to reach the kids, because it's easy for the parents to look back and say, those are mistakes I made, and resonate with them. But I want the kids to see it before they hit it. However, it's not like it's a revolutionary idea. A lot of people have done this.
Sure.
I know a lot of people have tried with me, but I actually have a nephew who's coming up in the Trinity League in California, very popular, very highly recruited school, and I'm going to interview a couple of those guys and get them on here. One of them is actually the number one receiver in the nation.
Shout out, by the way, to Noah Fafita.
Yep.
Yeah.
Noah, that's my baby. I taught him how to throw. So
that's your nephew.
Yeah, that's my brother's son.
The one that used to punch you in the nose. That's his son.
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, this first video that you did is really cool. It's the one you debuted back in December. Urban Meyer's on there.
Yep.
You played for Coach Meyer. How was that when you approached him to do this video for you? Because obviously he's had a number of challenges in his life in recent years too.
Urban was awesome. And that's like one of my big things is like when I'm talking to my nephew and his friends, I'm telling them, like, when you guys get recruited by somebody, think about what they'll do in 20 years from now. Like, are they going to answer your calls? Like, I called Gary Anderson. He picked up my call right away. Kyle called me right back. Alani did, but Urban was awesome.
Did I say Greg Oden on there too?
Greg Oden's on there. That one was just random. We were there
in Columbus.
Yeah, and it was just randomly like, hey, can we link up? And he said, yeah. His was great. Yeah, I just think there's a lot of good stories out there, and that's kind of my thing with this is I think there's power in stories for the person telling the story, and I think there's power in it for the person listening. So,
do you miss coaching?
Totally.
I know you've only been gone for a year. I mean, you just took this past season is when I think last summer is when you took the step away. Is it something you think you want to get back to at some point in time?
Yeah, no, I miss coaching. I do like this time though to just kind of find myself and get myself right. But yeah, I miss being out there with it's the next best thing. I always say it's the next best thing to playing is being a coach, and I think that's why so many guys love it so much. But yeah, I do. I miss those interactions.
There's so many. It's funny. So many guys that you played with at Utah and played against too are in coaching now. Is it weird for you to see Morgan Scalley's now defensive coordinator, maybe the guy that's going to succeed? Kyle Whittingham, Sione is up there now coaching. Lou's up there now coaching. I mean, these were all your guys. These were all teammates and friends. I mean, still are friends, but I mean, you were in it too. I mean, what do you think that is, Steve? Because that's a lot of guys from kind of that same era, the McBride, Urban Meyer, Whittingham, kind of crossover. Why do you think so many of you guys got into coaching?
I don't know. I think a lot of guys get into it just because of what I said. Like, they love being around football. I'm not surprised, though, that Morgan Sione Lewis